Welcome to CEX Talks, the show where we explore the trends in customer and employee experience, the future of how we work, live, and connect. I'm your host, Abhi Jain, and today we are diving into one of the most exciting and transformative areas of AI, which is voice AI. From revolutionizing customer service to enhancing employee productivity, voice AI is no longer just about talking to your virtual assistant. It's about breaking down communication barriers, creating seamless experiences, and even reimagining how businesses interact with their customers and teams. Today, with us is Davit, co founder and CEO of Krisp.ai, a pioneer in voice AI space. Krisp started with noise cancellation and has evolved into a platform tackling real time translation, accent localization, AI co pilots for customer service. And Davit is here to share his insights on how voice AI is transforming industries, the trends shaping its future, and what it means for all of us. And whether you're curious about how AI is reshaping your next customer service call or you are wondering what's next for global communication, this episode is for you. So let's get started. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'll be happy to be here.
So as we start getting into much heavier discussions, we would love to hear a bit about your journey, what brought you to Crisp, and also, you built Crisp into a leader in voice tech. So, what's one thing about that journey that has surprised you the most, which you didn't really expect?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it quick actually. So my background is engineering. I've been doing like building products for like 20 years. The last company I worked at was Twilio. So obviously that's how I got into communications. And like one day I was just wondering like why, given like seeing what AI is starting to do, that was like back in 2016. I was wondering why AI isn't, helping with noise cancellation, which is like an unsolved problem. Like people have been trying to solve it for like 40 years before that, or 50 years before that. Like it seemed like AI can transform that. I started talking to my co-founder, and it was like AI wasn't that problem. Like it was embarrassing to use the term AI back then. We were all saying like machine learning, right? So we started playing with it, and that's how I basically decided to start a company to solve the problem of noise cancellation with machine learning. That's how I got into this space. Oh my God, like this is the first time. I'm a first time entrepreneur. It's like every day there is like a big surprise, you know. But I think like what I'm currently most excited about is the transformation in the software development caused by AI, right? I just like a week ago we were doing a hackathon at Crisp, and I just watched how like two you know somewhat technical folks, they don't have like strong technical background, but they turned into technical folks. They're doing like prompt engineering and things like that, like playing with LLMs. They have built a system in 2 days. I was just looking at this system. I was just thinking that like just 5 years ago, like I had to have like a team of PhDs in like NLP to build a system that would probably be worse than the system that they have built. So it was like a mind-blowing moment for
And
me,
it is
man.
amazing, right? Your time to market has suddenly gone down. Your time to innovation,
Absolutely.
has just gone down, and it's reshaping, how things are going to evolve. So you have to always be on your feet,
Yes.
as to and in 10 steps ahead, where you need to be. So what has surprised you the most? What is one thing that you didn't expect and you're like, during the whole Crisp journey?
Well, like events like this, right? Like that, like in general, the startup, like how startups work, like why should a startup be successful? And during the journey, like nobody thought that we can go and build, noise cancellation technology that is the best in the world from Armenia, where like there was no evidence of it, right? But then when you start a company and you're determined and you sort of have a vision and bring smart people around and just like super laser focus on one problem, like wonders start to happen, because it's not just about you, it's about how the universe works. Like especially if you're doing something that people want, it's just gonna happen magically. But it's not intuitive. Like there are hundreds of people that told us not to do it because you cannot do this because Microsoft is gonna do it, Zoom is gonna do it. But that's not how startups work. No, I'm like I think this is the biggest surprise and insight for me. Yes, that's how it works. And it's not just like hypothetical thing. Yeah, by saying universe, I mean if you're building something, there are always people who need it, and then like somehow randomly things start to happen. Things start to come together, and if you're determined enough, it's gonna happen.
Yeah. No, makes sense. Makes sense. So let's talk about the overall state of the voice AI market, right? The AI voice market, it hit what, 5.4 billion in 2024, and it is growing at about 25% year on year. So what's driving this explosive adoption?
Sure. So, like, one thing, obviously, better speech technology, right? So, transcription is getting better. Like, it's a key component of in voice AI. It's not ideal yet. And as it becomes like perfect, more use cases are going to be open, right? But there was a tremendous sort of progress in that space. Like, that's like STT, speech to text. And then, of course, from traditional voice tech, it's TTS, text to speech, which has done enormous progress, right? Like with 11 labs, Cartesia, and others, like the number of voices, the quality of these voices, like how well the quality of how well they can convert different text to speech is amazing. But really the biggest progress has been like the LLMs. The LLMs allow you to have this sort of smart system there, like because without the smart system, who are you going to talk to, right? So like, but I mean, this is the stack. It's the STT, LLMs, and TTS. They just got so much better in the last 3 years, given the Gen AI, that this is driving explosive growth. But it's not just the technology. Obviously, the business side of it is that there is so much automation to do. Like voice using humans, right? Like is very expensive and difficult. So there is a lot of incentive in the market to drive the cost down, to actually enhance the experience using both with humans, but also through automation, through agents,
And
AI.
how is that happening? Because see, many of the market reports are talking about that by 2025, at the end of the 2025, there'll be about 8 billion AI voice assistants. And you just talked about it, right? On you need intelligent systems, to be able to converse with. So how is this reshaping the overall user behavior and expectations?
Voice is obviously way faster than anything else we have. Like as human species, like voice is the fastest way to communicate. It's not like the most optimal sometimes, but it's the fastest way. So if you create like the biggest benefit of voice AI is that you can have faster interactions. A lot of people, for example, I like typing a lot. Like I like writing a lot. That makes me think. But there are a lot of use cases. There are a lot of people who like voice verbal communication. So it just makes their interaction with systems way faster. That's like one. Natural, right? So like why wouldn't I write if I can speak and talk and just make it happen? And it's hands free. Like you don't have like if you're not going to use your hands, if you can't use your hands, you can just use your mouth and make that happen, right? So I think these are the driving factors why voice AI is so important and why there's so much investment in it. It's just a new form factor for people.
Okay. So now let's drill down. So we talked about the market, and Crisp journeys has been amazing. So in the overall voice AI ecosystem, right? Crisp started with noise cancellation. Now it's moving into translation, summaries, and then I know that you have a lot of things planned into how it becomes a voice platform. So how does this align, in a way, and how do you see the AI voice AI's future, and then where are these two converging? Just talk to us a bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, from our vision perspective, like 100% aligned with where the technology is going, right? And we are leveraging this. Like we have in-house technologies, for example, noise cancellation, the accent conversion are in-house technologies. And we also do a lot of things with, speech to text and other things in-house. But the first two are like entirely like Krisp IP. And of course, like when you see like the speed of like progress in LLM, like you want to utilize, leverage that in your product and platforms, right? Like create an app layer on top of it. That's where we are spending a lot of time today. So the mission of the company is really like maximizing voice productivity. So it's like 100% aligned with everything that is happening in voice AI. And we constantly try to find ways how we can, make people like that would mean the users, or it could be like call center agents. It could be just, of like anyone in the office that uses voice, like meetings and other things. Like how can we increase their productivity? And we have like three products, I'll be like, to make clear for the audience, right? We have a call center product where the 100% focus is to improve agent productivity and then supervisor productivity. And then we have meeting assistant product where the idea is to improve productivity across the company, right? Across the company. And then we have third product, which is an SDK which we include everywhere. Like we want to like power all the communication apps out there, and we have done amazing job on that as well. So 100% aligned with our mission, basically. Super excited about
And
the
then,
market.
as you're doing this, as you're growing, what you've processed, what about 75 billion audio minutes, so far, approximately,
Every month, every
every month,
month.
every
Yeah.
month. So with that huge of data processing and the advances which are happening on the technology front, the infrastructure front, of course, the cost becomes a big issue because, so that's one. Second, what is the most optimal futuristic architecture that one has to think about, and then I know a lot of future budding entrepreneurs are also listening to this podcast. How are you looking at that? How is that shaping up, the cost equation and the infrastructure equation, in this entire LLM space?
Look, to clarify, most of our early models and early technology like noise cancellation, like accent conversion, is running on device. Okay, so it's not running on our infrastructure; it's running on end users' infrastructure. So, which makes it an amazing business because we basically have no operational cost to run the infrastructure. So, like the number 75 billion per like minutes per month is mind blowing, but like Krisp is integrated into, say, like Discord. We are powering every interaction in Discord from noise cancellation perspective. We are integrating in number of such services, right? And soon we are going to be integrated in all conversational AI actually happening, because apparently our technology also helps these voice AI agents to talk better with users, with people. So that's where these like huge numbers are coming from. So it doesn't mean that we are processing all these audio streams. That would be like really difficult. But looking like going forward, as we are expanding our product, there is a lot happening in our cloud as well. And we are using a lot of LLMs, let's say, right? And it's incredible to see how the industry is evolving, actually. Like the price of LLMs is going down. Just recently, Google has launched their new Gemini Flash, and it's like model, right? It's like just amazing how it's going to process like video recordings and so on. So yeah, I mean, our operational sort of spend on infrastructure is going to grow, but in the same time, the LLM is the cheapest thing now in all our tech stack, right? Like transcription is still very expensive compared to it, and I like we are investing a lot to decrease the cost of transcription, but from LLM perspective, it's just like our strategy is to keep building the app layer and then just assume that LLMs are going to be cheaper, probably 10x cheaper every year.
And then we are seeing that, pretty much every day something open source comes up, and it drops the cost significantly, right? So talking about trends, right? Multimodal and multilingual interfaces, of course, there's a lot of language barriers, which are getting broken right now. How do you see that transforming like global industries, specifically, high touch industries, right? Healthcare, education. How are you seeing that? I know you guys are also, looking at this entire translate, real time translate. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, like I'll probably share more about the translation part. I think like in 25, the industry is going to make huge progress on real-time translation. We have a product actually that is designed for call centers that does near real-time translation, right? We call it live interpreter. And it's just like when you compare it to human interpretation, it's just like way more affordable, way more available, and quite good from quality perspective today. But as I look forward in 25, there are so many things like we can optimize on the latency side, on the translation quality side, and also from tools perspective, like how do we make it more transparent for the call center admins and supervisors to see how well the translation went, where it could do better, and do it all like automatically, right? I think like I'm super bullish on translation, live interpretation in 25. And from like multimodal perspective, look, I think that like again, like referring back to latest Gemini model, it's just mind blowing to see how cheap, fast, and well it understands vision, right? Vision and audio. And I think it's just gonna get better in 25. And all the wild sort of ideas we had at Crisp that we can like process these many videos, and we are starting to build them because it's just gonna happen, right? So like super excited about the multimodal and translation piece. Yeah.
No, and I can tell you, yesterday, I was playing around, with the whole real time translation, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. We tried some different languages. We were just trying to, I would say, stress test, the whole system, but pretty impressive there. And now, as we look at voice, of course, there is driverless cars. Okay, now in the driverless cars, key interaction with the car is changing. Voice is becoming your key interaction, with the car. Again, and if you look at many countries, cars are becoming the voice first hubs. So how do you see, what role can voice play in enhancing the safety and personalizing the in-vehicle experiences?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think from safety perspective, and like, I just don't envision that voice is gonna like transform the vehicle experience entirely. I think from my perspective, it doesn't make sense because like it's always gonna be multimodal, right?
Hmm.
Like there are going to be controls that you always use your hand to control. It doesn't make sense to talk to the car all the time. But there are certain experiences that you have in the car that like are so bad today, right? Like when like you're driving the car and like kids you're in the back and they play, they scream, and then you want to join a call, for example, right? Like in the past you wouldn't do it because it's just embarrassing, or it's just gonna be it's gonna be too much noise. But now I think like with technologies such as noise cancellation, focusing on the primary speaker, this has been like a big problem in cars like for like decades, right? Now I think like these things are going to be solved, and it's just going to be more convenient to work and make calls from the car. Like that's one thing. The other, like from safety perspective, is just the hands-free thing, right? And obviously, like if you can use your voice to control the car, like why would you use your hands and create risks for driving? Like I think that those are the two things which has been the case. It's just like now technology is going to make it possible to solve, right?
Okay, no, makes sense. Makes sense. So let's move a step forward. But this does raise a lot of challenges and ethical consideration, right? And I think that's the biggest debate with AI that we all are having, across the globe, with the AI summit, recently, which concluded in Europe. That was a big theme. And I know you recently talked about, privacy and bias as critical hurdles, which developers had to be very aware of to ensure, voice AI serves the population. So any insights and thoughts on that? And how is that being handled today?
Yeah, look, in general, I think there are probably two ways to think about this. First, privacy first design. My background, I don't know if I ever told you, my background is security. I've used to run like product security for all the products at Twilio.
You always surprise me, every time. Sometimes I hear about rocket ships, sometimes I hear about the security.
Yeah. Satellites. Yeah, exactly. So, but I used to do a lot of cryptography and stuff like that. So I'm very well aware of the privacy requirements and around products. So I think like I don't think that like as a practitioner in the field, I don't think like like anything is new from that perspective. Like people have been designing privacy first systems. I think like the trend is just like there's more data going into the cloud, and that has been the trend for the last
But
20.
then is it then more of a regulation issue, or so what you're saying is, hey, privacy has always been there. It's always, systems are designed that way. Then is the noise or the arguments or the debate which is happening, then is that happening more because there's so much data now and there's so much personal data now that it is becoming more of a regulation issue than a privacy issue?
Well, I think there are several issues, right, that we should separate. Like one, I wouldn't put this in the privacy one, but it is like copyright issues. And we know that there is a lot of debate around this. Can the LLMs use the data that has been created by others? Right? And there are some lawsuits, like New York Times is suing OpenAI, and a lot of things happening. Like the outcome, we will see what the outcome will be for this legal cases, but they will shape the future. But then there is also a political aspect of if OpenAI or American companies cannot use this content, but Chinese companies are going to use this content and get better and faster, right? How do you regulate that? And it's a very it's a political question, right? How it should be done. But from privacy perspective, I think like in the last 20, 25 years, what Facebook and Google had access to, I mean, they still have access to the same like enormous amount of personal data that they have to have. So I don't think like anything has changed from that perspective. That data is still stored in the cloud. Like Europeans have a different view on this, how this should be regulated. The US has a different view. I think like nothing has changed from that perspective, as far as we're talking about privacy. But then there is like a training data, like bias in the training data, right? So if you're training a system that has bias from data perspective, and of course it's gonna be biased towards a certain direction. And I really like what Elon Musk is doing with Grok and XAI, where they say like the primary function of AI should be like understanding the universe and always trying to tell the truth, to dig up and try to tell the truth, which can be very subjective often. But as a like a North Star metric, I think that's the best metric you could have, right? Because otherwise it's going to be your AI is going to be very political, and
Yeah.
it's gonna create a lot of issues for the world. Yeah.
But then that also raises the whole issue around, so we talk about privacy regulation and fraud, because the fraud is also going up, and with deep fakes, voice. So that's another area, which, and given your security background, is that something which is always of the top concern right now, on how do you stay ahead, of
Yeah.
the.
Yeah. Look. But when I was at Twilio, I was just surprised like how big of like fraud is in telecom, for example, right? It was like 20, 30, 40 billion dollar per year. There was like it's just like amazingly big number. And so like I don't think that like there are going to be more risks, and there's always going to be security is always a battle, right? So like bad actors use technology to do bad things, and then good actors use technology to defend. So from this perspective, nothing is really changing. But then there are things such as, let's say, voice authentication with banks, with financial institutions. And that's where I'm not like super up to date on where the technology is. But what I see from deepfake perspective is just like, from what I understand, the AI can clone your voice so well that it can pass any authentication that is solely based on voice. So I think that industry is highly challenged right now. And but then like from security perspective, you have multi-factor authentication. If you only rely on voice, probably that's not going to fly anymore. Like you need to rely on multi-factor. And in the same time, there are technologies that do like watermark AI and or detect, like AI detection technologies. So it's always a battle, Abi. I think like and again, like just historical perspective, this is not the first time that technology creates these challenges. I think we will overcome that.
No, yeah, you said that battle, of good and evil will always continue, right? So it's a constant battle. So talking about the future, right? If we talk about the future, we've talked about hyper personalization, we have talked about voice security, we talked about, and then we know, right? The VCs what poured almost $3 billion into the voice AI space last year. But as you look at, where, you are taking Crisp, where you see the voice AI, you know, maturing, in the future, do you see, there are trends and things, which are missing? Founders are just, kind of not acknowledging right now, which are going to hit them, and hence, industry or the group as a whole needs to focus on that? Are there certain areas where you wish, there would be a lot more investments flowing in to really, beef them up?
Look, frankly, Abhi, it's hard to comment on this. I think like there are so many smart people in the VC and investment space. I mean, they're making like a lot of mistakes because it's just like the nature of the job. Like, it's just hard to predict what's happening, right? What's going to happen. And for example, like I was reading the other day, like there has been so much money invested in LLMs, like just like foundational models, and now like you get super good foundation models for free. Like, is that gonna like disrupt VC? Because never in the history of VC has been so much investment in such big checks, which went all like buying GPUs, right? Eventually. Yeah, a lot of money has been poured in there. Like, was that a good decision? I don't know. It's really hard to say. Like, if you heard like VCs a year ago, everyone was saying, "Oh, the app layer, like it's just a wrapper on top of APIs. Who cares about the app layer? Because foundation models are gonna disrupt it." Like, just a year in, and like it's like flipped entirely. They say, "Oh, don't start a foundation model company. The disruption is going to be at the app layer." So it's really hard to predict, but in the same time, there are very, very smart people working on this, and because there is so much money involved, right? So I don't think like investors are necessarily like missing important things. They see everything. It's just the technology and progress is so fast paced. It's like I sometimes I lose my mind. Like every day there is a new thing. Now, how do you adjust your strategy on this new thing, right? And so yeah, it's very hard to keep up with the pace we have. So yeah,
And then, in that scenario, what would be your advice to the budding entrepreneurs, the founders, researchers, who are trying to do this, from your experience, so as they think of launching new products, what would be your one advice to them?
yeah, yeah. My advice is like right now. My advice February 25, right? Because like in 1 month it might change, but absolutely, I think this is a pretty known thing. Like that's how we operate at Crisp. We just assume that AI and LLMs are gonna get better, and if something is, even if it's like X more expensive than what the market would accept right now, just assume that it's going to be 10x cheaper in 1 year, and go and build the application, like go and build an amazing application experience on top of it, and just wait until like the models, whether it's open source models or whether it's like something from like a large AI provider, these models are going to get cheaper. It's just a race right now. And yeah, and invest in automation. I think like so aligning, like embracing this change is important. Like don't, like we all get scared sometimes with the pace, but like another way of thinking about this is just like embracing it. Just imagine how much new opportunity this progress is enabling, the technological progress, right? I'm so excited about the future. And I hope that we will be in that future. We will be making a difference. We will stay around in that future.
I like your advice. Embrace change, don't be deterred by what seems to be high cost today, because at the pace of technology and innovation, the costs are dropping, significantly. Just focus on the product, the innovation, what you want to bring to the market. No, thank you for that. So David, with that, we're almost, coming to the end of our time. Where can our listeners follow your work?
Sure. Yeah. I'm trying to be active on LinkedIn. So Davit B on LinkedIn, right, is my handle, and also I run a voice AI newsletter. where we try to like send a digest every week on what's happening in voice AI, and also do podcasts as you do, Abhi. So yeah, both places are a great place to follow me.
And for our listeners, this podcast is in collaboration with Voice AI Newsletter. I don't think I've come across any other newsletter which focuses specifically on Voice AI. So if you have not subscribed to it, please do. Uh, David, any parting thoughts, before we say goodbye?
Look, I think we are like every day I'm thinking that we are living the most exciting time in the technology transformation, and we are just blessed. Like if you're a builder or a user of this technology, we are just like all blessed with this. So yeah, and Abhi and you and I, we know that there is so much disruption and also progress coming in the call center space, right? I'm just looking forward to keep building in that space and making, innovating in that space. Thanks for the invite today.
Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us. This was a great insight session. I hope everyone likes it. So until next time, take care.
All right.